Greetings, YouTube. I'm here to hit you with yet another learning style, and this one is called Vark, which sounds like something an armadillo would say, but anyway. Vark is an acronym for Visual, Audio, Reading, and Kinesthetic. And I don't know about you, but I think reading sounds kind of lame with all those other words. But Vark is about the senses, which is essentially what you use to take information in from the outside world. Just in case it isn't obvious enough, visual learners prefer to see things, auditory learners prefer to hear things, reading learners prefer to read, and kinesthetic learners prefer to do things or act things out. So what does this mean? Why should we care? Well, for one thing, it helps you figure out your preferred style of learning. For example, if you're a visual learner, you probably like things like flashcards or mnemonics. Mnemonic. You probably like things like flashcards or mnemonics. On the other hand, if you're an auditory learner, you're probably the type that prefers to read text out loud or hear people say stuff. You might also like watching movies. If you're really nerdy, you're probably the type that brings one of those little IC recorders to class. If you're a reading type, besides obviously reading books, you probably like going over your notes quite a bit, maybe even keeping a journal. Finally, if you're the kinesthetic type, you're looking for ways to actively practice what you know. So you're probably on the lookout for native speakers or other teachers who can help you out. You may have noticed that I said preferred rather than better. This is because there isn't any evidence to show that knowing or catering your learning style is actually going to help you learn or study better. It's just what you like to do. In fact, it's probably the best idea to try to build all of the styles, and there are several reasons for this. One reason is that you can't always have your favorite style catered to. For example, you might be in a particular class where the teacher does a lot of visual stuff even though you're an auditory learner. Or on the other hand, you may only have some books as resources even though you're more of a kinesthetic learner. Another reason is that just because you prefer a style doesn't necessarily mean it's the optimal for you. Maybe you've grown up in an environment where that's the only way that you were able to learn. For example, a lot of people in school get talked at, so they have to become good auditory learners, and they don't really have experience reading or practicing a language. So you might find that by expanding your repertoire, you actually find other styles of learning more suited to you. The final reason that learning styles may be of use to you is that if you're having trouble with a very specific problem, knowing your learning style might actually help you to solve that particular problem at that time. Let's say, for instance, that your language exchange partner or your teacher is trying to explain something to you. They're telling you how to use like a particular grammatical structure, but it's just not clicking. Well, if you're aware that you're more of a kinesthetic learner, then you can actually help that partner or help your teacher by saying, well, instead of explaining it to me, could we do a little role play, or could you show me how you would use it? Now, to kind of wrap up those last two videos, the previous one was on Kolb's learning style. There are lots of people that would argue that your learning style isn't really important, or that people don't really even have them. Well, this may be true, and we could debate about this, but in my personal experience, I have found that my students benefit a lot from knowing it, particularly, as I mentioned, when they have trouble with a particular point. I once heard a person compare this to a weight loss program and your weight. While knowing your weight itself isn't really going to help you lose weight, it does give you a kind of gauge to know where you're at and know what to do next. So in the same sense, you don't really actually need to know your learning style to be a good learner, but it may help in particular situations. I'm going to wrap up here, and on a quick note, I want to say that the next thing I want to get into is pretty big for me. It's the learning cycle, and I think that if a learner of any kind, but especially for language, has a good grasp of this cycle, then they can really see a dramatic improvement in their progress and also the rate of progress, just how quickly they grow. So please be sure to check that out next time.